What's up, guys? Doug Polk here, and welcome back for another episode of Poker Hands. And today we're going to be taking a look at a six-figure pot with the stuff of poker nightmares set over set. Let's go ahead and jump into the action.
Bunnying around.
Hopping around.
Hopping around.
It's human, you know.
It's a razor.
That's
Two
why
tips for
I keep
Dylan.
under this shit.
Raise it up in the +1. Brad, ace 5. Looks like he's going for the 3-bet.
Easy.
Cold calls, 2 7s. Dylan has a decision between calling and 4-betting. Does just go for the call. 3 players.
How you doing, Boots?
Our hand begins at 50, 100, 200, and Dylan opening it up under the gun here with pocket 10s. Definitely a standard open, not much to talk about. Action folds to Brad the button, who looks down at the ace-5 of hearts. This is the kind of hand you're going to want to 3-bet. Usually, I would say, when you decide to play, you can mix it up and just decide to go for the call every now and then. But the nice thing about hands like this is that you block the really strong hands that can have an ace in your opponent's range, like aces or ace-king. So it's definitely the standard play to bump it up. You also knock the blinds out, typically speaking, so it's a good situation to isolate your opponent, and you are pretty deep to begin this hand. Brad goes for a $1,400 size. I think I might go a little bit larger than this, more like $1,600 or $1,700, but regardless, this is certainly a good move. The action now on easy in the big blind here. Kind of a tough spot in the blinds when you face a button 3-bet, especially when it's a small 3-bet. I think there's a couple of different ways you can play this. You can go for 4-bet only when you do decide to play, so you're mainly just going to fold, and if you do decide to play, you're going to 4-bet. Or you can decide to work in some flats with some middling pairs, some suited broadways, some higher pairs, and maybe even some traps from time to time. Typically speaking, I recommend for players just to 4-bet or fold here, but I do not mind taking a flop with some of your middling pocket pairs, as long as you're going to put in some of those other hands I just mentioned. Back over to Dylan here with the pocket, of course, easy, making the call here with pocket 7s. And now over to Dylan with the pocket 10s. Definitely going to want to just call here as well. 10s is not the kind of hand you really will like to 4-bet when you're this deep. I mean, guys, these players are quite deep. We're looking at, 450 big blinds for the shallowest stack. So everyone in the hand is very deep. 10s, if you 4-bet here, you're kind of turning it into a bluff. If you get re-raised, you're pretty much unclear what to do. You're pretty unsure what to do. So I do like Dylan's decision just to call, and we're taking a 3-way flop.
A little tired. Drink that mezcal.
Wow! No!
Set over set!
No!
Here we go. Flush draw on board.
Big pot energy, lock in chat. This could be...
I like that smoke.
The flop comes 10-7-4 with 2 clubs, set over set, top set versus mid set. This is the kind of situation where the player with the lower set is always going to lose some chunk of money. The question is just, will this board remain clean enough so that the other player wins it all? But before we jump into this flop analysis, I want to let you guys know that we have a big tournament coming up at the Lodge. The Lodge Championship Series main event, $2 million guaranteed. It's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars up top. Make sure you schedule to come out here and play in mid-May. Check it out, guys. I'll see you there. We also have a high roller tournament series going the same week. So if you like higher stakes tournament buy-ins, you can play our main event as well as some of these 3 to 25Ks we're going to be running. Stop on by the Lodge in mid-May. Back to our hand here. We have set over set. Both players check to Brad as he is the player that 3-bet pre-flop. Definitely the standard play. Brad decides to not take a stab and just check it back. I think this is a good situation for Brad just to give it up. As multiple players under the pot, you really kind of want to avoid c-betting these hands that do not have very much equity. You do not want to have hearts or spades on this flop to bet. You want to have clubs or diamonds. You also would have overcard hands to bet. And then, of course, you have all kinds of value bets. You could have flush draws. You could have straight draws. A lot of different things that make sense to bet here. But with ace-5 of hearts, seems like a pretty good spot just to check it back and throw in the towel. Brad does check it back, and let's take a turn.
Biggest pots in the history of the Lodge right now.
This flop check through. What are we
I don't
seeing?
describe it. It's a different kind of smoke.
Poor easy, you're kidding me.
Wow.
Here comes Dylan.
I can't even believe it. It's going to be...
Because we need our security.
It's going to be a $200,000 pot.
I'm always ready, baby. I'm always ready.
Chat, you better get hyped.
Here
Dylan,
we go.
gonna raise it up.
Makes it 14,000.
Brad takes his exit.
What's Easy going to come back with?
This time we need to make sure we hydrate. Because we didn't hydrate before. There was no hydration.
Just going to call.
Just a call.
Very important.
The turn comes the jack, creating 2 flush draws. So a lot of draws here now on the board. Ace, king, queen, 9, 8, 5, or 3 will make a straight. So any card other than a board pair reduced will make a straight. And there are now 2 flush draws to go along with it. This is a very dynamic board where things can change a lot by the river. Because of that, when you do have a set, you do not want to be slow playing. You want to be betting and trying to build this pot, especially with your lower sets. So I really like this bet from Easy here to bet 2/3 pot and start building this pot. Over to Dylan now with his pocket 10s. I think he pretty much needs to raise. I wouldn't mind trapping here every now and then if he had a hand like pocket jacks, where if your opponent's bluffing, you keep them in. You block a lot of the hands that could continue versus a raise. And then also, you're a little bit less worried about different hands your opponent can have. I think if you're going to trap with jacks, it makes the most sense to do it when you have a hand like, let's just say, for example, the jack of clubs and then another jack, where you block some of those pair plus flush draws that can give you value. Regardless, you do mainly want to be raising these sets for value, and he does decide to bump it up. Brad gets out of the way here with his ace high. Now for Easy, a little bit of an interesting situation. You could definitely argue to put in another raise here on the turn, or you could argue just to go for the slow play and call. If you re-raise here, one of the issues is that you're going to get value. You're going to get action from hands that have you beat. Pocket jacks, pocket 10s, 9, 8 suited. All certainly hands your opponent can have, and those are going to beat you into the pot and stack you in this hand. But there are also a bunch of other hands your opponent could have that you do have beat. Dylan can certainly have pocket 4s. He would certainly open that and call it the bet. He could have jack 10 suited. He could have jack X of clubs. He could have ace queen of clubs. He could have these hands in their diamond variants. So I don't really mind either way here with the pocket 7s between 3 betting on the turn or just going for the call. I think maybe I would lean a little bit more towards putting in yet another raise, but I can certainly understand wanting to pump the brakes here and just calling to trap for the river. If I had a hand like pocket 10s, I'd definitely be putting in another raise. 9-8 suited, I'd definitely be putting in another raise. Pocket jacks, kind of the same thing we talked about if Dylan had that hand. Don't mind putting in your trap with your top sets. And if you guys look at the way that the computers play top set, a lot of times they really like to trap with it, keep your opponent in there, and it's going to give you some boats in some places that might not be so common. Anyway, Easy decides just to go for the call here, which I do not mind at all, and let's take a river.
Oh my gosh,
Quadrophenia.
quads!
No way.
Quads for Dylan. Boat for Easy. Straight no longer a concern. Neither is the flush. He leads.
What does Dylan do here?
Until Thursday stream starts.
Dylan wondering how much money
That would be
he could
legendary,
shovel into this pot.
If you play
Why would we
call.
not? Why would we not? At this point?
Well, that's 17 hours away. I mean, that's pretty.
No, it's not. It's 8 hours away. It's like 9 hours away.
Oh, I thought you wanted to play all the way into the next stream.
Yeah.
I would need a 3-hour break.
No, it is like.
I got some
it's
calls
like 15
scheduled for the
hours.
morning.
That's good. No, I like it.
No. We
Skull
can-
Mike
we
in
can
the
tell
chat.
some- If you have to
Oh
go, you
my.
have to go.
Oh my indeed, Skull.
I mean, if you're a quitter.
What's Dylan going to make it here?
Yeah,
$100,000 behind. Does he ever just shove here?
He might just shove.
I'm gonna stick it out, but
96,000.
96,000. Wow.
1K.
Easy.
I wanted you to do that, but that's a lot.
The river comes to 10 of diamonds, completing the backdoor flush, and Easy decides to lead for 1/3 pot here. I'm not a huge fan of this play. I think that when Dylan raises the turn, he's pretty polarized. He's going to have 2 pair or a set, or maybe jack X of clubs, or he's on a draw. If he's on a draw, he has clubs that missed, or he has diamonds that got there, or he has a straight draw that missed. Versus all of those hands, I would prefer to check and let him bet. The hands that missed might bluff, the hands that got there might value bet. There are a lot of hands that you can win at least a bet out of if you check in this situation. So I don't think this is a spot that I like leading 10K all that much. And I do not also think that Easy should really have a 10. He can't have 10x of clubs or 10x of diamonds because those hands do not exist. Unless we need to get a new deck out here. So I would just check all my hands in this spot as Easy. But he does decide to go ahead and lead for 1/3 pot. The question now for Dylan is, what do you want to raise to with your quads? It's one of the more fun poker decisions of, I have the nuts, how much money can I possibly win? A couple of things to think about in this situation. Could make sense to have a small raise range and a large raise range. Basically, when you have certain hands, like maybe even pocket tens, where it's very unlikely your opponent has anything, makes sense to raise a little bit smaller. If you have a hand more like Jack 10 of spades or pocket jacks, or maybe the ace high flush, could make sense to raise a little bit bigger. That said, if you raise big with the flush, what are you getting action from? So maybe that one doesn't make too much sense to raise for the large size. I'd probably have two sizes that I raise here. I'd probably have one that's to about 45, 50,000, and then I'd probably have one that's all in as well. But you could maybe argue for a smaller raise size or just the all in. A lot of different options on the table. Regardless, Dylan does decide to make it about 96,000. This is a little bit of a strange move. I don't see solvers make this play all that often. Maybe Dylan just thinks that his opponent is a little more likely to pay off in this situation if he has a good hand. I'm not entirely sure. The problem with this size is that you basically just win a little bit less than if you go all in and get called. And additionally, you get to have less bluffs because you're going with a smaller size. So I assume this is some kind of read-based play from Dylan to make it this size. Over to easy with your boat. I mean, I just simply think you have to call. I don't think that there's really much you can do about this. You could have pocket jacks or jack 10 suited. However, those hands are a little more likely to just trap on the flop and go, or on the turn and go for the check raise, especially pocket jacks. So realistically, I think he can definitely have jack 10 suited, and he can definitely have pocket sevens. It's just hard to imagine many more hands he can have for value here. I mean, these spots suck. When the pot gets really big and your opponent's dropping a very specific hand, a lot of times you feel like they're not going to be able to bluff you, or they're maybe not bluffing you, but you still have one of your top hands. I don't really think you're going to be able to get away from set over sets in this situation. The question might be, what hands would Dylan bluff with? And that is a good question. I think in Dylan's shoes, the best hands to bluff with are if you somehow have a jack in your hand. Given the small 3-bet size preflop, I think Dylan will certainly have ace jack with the ace of diamonds. That would be a very nice bluff hand in Dylan's shoes. Maybe he could have a hand like ace jack of clubs, although you really don't want to have the club here in the situation he's bluffing with. So ace jack, ace of diamonds would be something that would be one of his best possible bluff candidates. So, I mean, I basically think that the cliff notes here are in easy shoes. You could have a couple better hands, but you really can't be folding boats in big pots. And if they got it, then unfortunately, sometimes you just got to pay them off.
Easy says that's a lot.
I wanted you to do that, but that's a lot.
Call!
Oh, wow.
Oh my God. Wow.
Wow. 225,000.
Quadrophenia beats a boat.
Thank you for joining me for Poker Hands, but one more thing before we go. For the Lodge Championship Series, we're doing a meetup game with myself, Brad Owen, and Andrew Nemi on April 25th to kick off the Lodge Championship Series. We have tons of different tournaments going on, from small stake stuff to bigger stake stuff. So make sure to check out our full schedule. I'll put a link in the description below. Thank you guys for joining English. Thank you guys for joining today, and I will see you again soon.